Hey, what's up, everybody? Paul Fiore here. Welcome to Jets Talk Now. Happy Saturday morning. Jets practicing day 3. Seeing some cool updates by the reporters. The fans are in attendance today, which is awesome, especially considering there won't be that many. But let's talk about the last 24-hour news cycle and Baker Mayfield. And, my view on Baker Mayfield versus maybe what many in the media and probably a lot in the fan base think. And by the way, this has nothing to do with what I believe Baker Mayfield is talent-wise. It's more about the Jets and the fit and the long-term implications. So obviously, Baker Mayfield did not get a contract extension with Tampa Bay this offseason. He made it very clear how unhappy he was about that, which led to many in the media, specifically New York media, guys like Tiki Barber and others, to speculate about his possible availability either this season, which that's not going to happen. Tampa Bay's not trading him with Todd Bowles on the hot seat, trying to save his job. Or if he becomes available at the end of the season, should the Jets try to go all in and acquire Baker. And by the way, they could franchise tag him and then then they can do the trade. So I think there's a couple of nuances to this. But Baker turned down, I think it's been reported, so it's been kind of back and forth. He's playing on a $40 million contract this year, right? So it's not like Baker's not making good money. He's making $40 million this year. He signed a 3-year, $100 million deal with Tampa. And he's played up to his contract. We can talk about that. But, last year, notwithstanding where he was hurt, the team wasn't very good. There was lots of injuries on the offensive line. He's been good, right? He's been a top 12-ish to 15-ish quarterback in my mind. But contract negotiations. He's going into his final season. He wants an extension. He was offered, from what I have been able to kind of surmise from various different reporting, it seems as though Baker was offered somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 years, $100 million as an extension, not as just a throwaway this season and just so basically a 1-year tack on. So it would really be like a 3-year, $140 million total deal. Baker's going to his age 31 season, so he would get 3 years. He'd play on a $40 million this year, the next 2 years at $50 million a piece. It sounds like he wanted more than that, more guarantees, which was more years. Paying him $50 million would put him in the top 7 range of quarterbacks in the league. Obviously, there are guys that are getting paid that are above him, pay-wise, that aren't as good as him, namely guys like Daniel Jones. But it feels very clearly that Tampa had no interest in going past what they offered him. Baker is obviously upset. He's made it very clear. And so, you see a lot of speculation. And so, is it possible and even likely that Baker Mayfield at the end of this season becomes available? Yeah, there's a few ways that happens. Number one, he has a fantastic year, plays with a chip on his shoulder, like he's made very clearly it's kind of his MO, right? When he plays well. You guys remember last year when they beat the Jets and he was all about beating Wilkes because he had a chip on his shoulder about Wilkes because Wilkes cut him, which, whatever. Baker finds his internal motivation by the doubters of who he is and what his career has been. And he usually plays pretty well when he plays like that. So let's say Baker has a really good year this year. Tampa Bay and him can't come to some version of an agreement. They tag and trade him. That's possible. And then he becomes a valuable asset at the age of 31, going into age 32 season, which means, you've probably got a solid 3 years of football left, maybe 4. Because I say once somebody gets past the age of 35, and I get it, Brady and Rodgers have done that, and a couple other guys have been good. It's more I think for a guy his size and the way he plays, play style wise, it's more likely he's going to be on the decline by age 35 than just kind of staying at a high level. That's my personal opinion. You can disagree with that, which is fine. So I think he could become available in that scenario, or they find a way to come to an extension agreement because he had a great year. They win the division. Cool. The other way he becomes available is if Tampa Bay is not good this year. They don't make the playoffs like they didn't make last year. His season is erratic like it was last year. And they decide, well, we're just not going to entertain giving him a franchise tag, and he becomes a free agent. So I think there's it's probably 50-50 whether Baker actually shakes free. I do think that he likes it where he is in Tampa, and when you have kids and you're making really good money and you're comfortable and you've had success, I do think that's challenging I think people don't understand how challenging it is to pick up and move your family. But anyway, if Baker became available one way or the other, what should the Jets do? I did a lot of thinking on this. And my perspective on it is you stay away. Not because Baker's not a good quarterback. I think he's a top 12, top 15 QB in the league. Here's my reasoning. It's not anything to do with Baker as far as his personality. I think I love his fiery kind of personality. I think it is exactly what the Jets need. I mean, the Jets need a guy who can come here, not give a damn what anybody thinks, play with a chip on his shoulder, be fiery, all of that stuff. I think that would play fine. Do I think he'd have moments with the media? Oh, 100%. I definitely think that. But I'm not overly worried about that. I like that. I like the passion. I've admired that about him, his ability to come back after what looked like a career that had completely went to crap in Carolina, basically on the scrap heap, tossed to the Rams. So his makeup, moxie, attitude, mindset, all of those things are exactly what I want my quarterback. So check that box. Here's where I struggle a bit. Part of what makes Baker Baker is the play style that he has. Baker is reckless is not a fair word. He is a fearless competitor who is willing to take chances, puts his body at risk. He plays with a certain edge that makes him susceptible to big hits. And we saw it last year. He played hurt. Commend him for playing with all the injuries because he played through a bunch of injuries. But he takes a bit of a beating. I don't think that will age well. Baker's not Josh Allen, right? He's not a big, bulky guy. He's a slight guy. I know he's listed at 6'1". He's not 6'1". Baker's probably more like 6 foot, maybe 6.5 feet, but he's slight of build. He plays, like I said, with a fearlessness. He's willing to get in people's faces and take hits. And I think one of two things will need to happen for Baker for him to have a career that is extended and not suddenly injury prone. He's either going to have to change his play style and avoid those types of risky, plays and, running downfield and potentially taking a hit and all that kind of stuff. Or he's going to play that way and it's going to end up in some sort of a bad injury. I think there's too much history of guys that play like that put themselves in harm's way as much as he will. That I think with Baker, and he's going to be 31 this year, so he'd be 32 next year. You're not bringing him in as a bridge to play for 2 seasons. He clearly wants a long-term deal. So you have to understand what comes with signing Baker. What comes with signing Baker is going to be a 4 or 5 year extension. So you're committing to 5 years of Baker as he gets towards his mid 30s with a play style that would likely lead to injury risk that's at a higher level than your typical quarterback. That's number one. Number two, it's going to cost you $50+ million a year. And yes, the Jets have the cap room and they have a relatively young team. So that's not overly risky from the money perspective, except that if he's playing poorly and you've committed that big of dollars, or he gets hurt and you've committed that kind of guaranteed money, which again, I think it's very likely Baker gets a 4-year or 5-year extension in the neighborhood of $190 to $210 million, depending upon the years. 4 years, $190, $200 million, 5 years, $240 to $260, let's call it. You're committing significant dollars to a player into entering his mid 30s, late, like 32 to 36, 37 season, in that range. Will the Jets be better that way? Yes. I mean, he's a better quarterback than what they have. What is the objective? Is the objective to be the next Tampa Bay Buccaneers? In 3 seasons with Tampa Bay, right? Baker Mayfield with Tampa, his record is, let's see, Tampa Bay, Baker, 9-8, 10-7, 8-9. Is that better than what we've seen with the Jets? For sure. They've won a division in a very weak division. Last year, they didn't make the playoffs, lots of injuries. No one knows what they're going to be this year, but Todd Bowles is on the hot seat. So should they win that division, it's one of the worst divisions in football. Can they lose that division as easily as they lost it last year? Yeah. I mean, I think New Orleans is going to be better, right? I think New Orleans is improving. I think Shuck looks pretty good. Let's see what Carolina is. But my point is, Baker had 2 very good years in Tampa, and then last year, not a great year. But it hasn't been good enough to take them beyond a playoff team that gets knocked out, that isn't a real contender for anything. Now, people will say that's Todd Bowles. Yes, Todd Bowles is not a good coach, but let me ask this way. Rhetorically speaking, if the Jets go and win, let's do it 2 scenarios. Jets win 7 games this year. Glenn saves his job. They have 3 first-round draft picks going into next season. Geno was okay. He was 22nd QB in the league. You have 3 first-round picks. One of those picks is a top 10 pick. Let's say, I don't know, Indy had a bad season. That's not possible. Daniel Jones off of a torn Achilles, a team that I don't think is very good. Do you say, all right, I'm gonna do a trade with Tampa, give up a first-round draft pick, bring in, so Glenn is saved. They won 7 games. They were good enough. Glenn's saved. Your choice is, I have a top 10 pick, 2 other first-rounders. The draft is, you got 4 or 5 guys in the draft that are good young quarterbacks. Does Glenn then go, okay, we were a 7-win football team. I'm going to go give Baker a 5-year deal, trade a first-round pick. Going into age 32 season, Baker's now going to make sure that I become a consistent, strong playoff team in the AFC East. I make that move. Or does Glenn say, Geno was pretty decent. I've got my eyes on one of these 5 QBs I like. There'll be a rookie deal. We can get him. We can develop him. Geno can be the beginning of the season starter while we transition to the next guy. What do you think is more appealing to Glenn in that situation? I actually think that he'd want to get his guy. I don't know if he would want Baker in his 5 years, 4 years, $50 million a year, and all that comes with that, versus getting in a young, fresh guy. You still have Geno who can play to start the season while we ease the young guy in. So I think that that's the first scenario where I don't think Glenn would want Baker. I don't know if Muji would want Baker in that scenario. He would get a chance to draft his guy. Most GMs want to draft their guy. Why? Because if you get the quarterback right in the draft, as a GM, you've just set yourself up. Like you will forever have a job in the league. Okay. Signing a guy like Baker and getting it wrong or him getting hurt is the fastest way to get fired, a la Aaron Rodgers when the Jets did what they did, a couple of years back. I don't blame them for the decision, but they made the Hail Mary call because Douglas got the QB wrong in the draft previously, and they decided we have a team good enough to make a run, and they swung for the fences. It is what it is. It didn't work out. Everybody got fired, right? That is the same scenario with Baker, albeit he's younger, but he's never been Aaron Rodgers. Okay. Last year, Baker turned the ball over a bunch of times. The year before that, I think he led the league in interceptions. He's had 27 picks in the last 2 seasons. Yes, he's thrown a lot of touchdowns as well. But again, I just don't know if Baker is a top 10 QB in the league. I just don't know if he is. And I don't know if you want to commit that kind of money and years to that player. Now let's do the other scenario. The Jets stink. Geno's bad. They go to Klubnik. He's not the answer. What happens? Glenn and the coaching staff is absolutely fired. Muji may or may not be fired. Depends on what Woody's, mindset is about the young players, let's say, and how he feels about Muji. I think there's a better than 50% chance Muji has a job. Do you guys then think after a disastrous season, Muji, who's got to go get his new head coach, armed with 3 first-round picks, which will be very high pick, one of them will definitely be a high pick in that scenario. You think then he's going to go, okay, let's go get the head coach, go sign Baker off of a really bad season, and we're going to turn this into something amazing? Like, again, recipe to getting fired, number one. Number two, no new head coach coming in armed with a first-round top 5 draft pick will choose Baker Mayfield over drafting his guy. I promise you that's not going to happen. So I don't see the fit. Like, where is the fit? Now, what if the Jets surprise everybody and win 10 games this year? Well, then they're going to just play Geno. They're going to go re-sign Geno, and then they're going to find a way to draft a quarterback next year. And whenever that time comes, that's when they're going to play the young quarterback. I don't see where Baker fits in any of these scenarios where Glenn keeps his job or Glenn gets fired. Certainly if Glenn gets fired, I don't see a world where Baker Mayfield becomes the Jets quarterback. I don't think a new head coach would want Baker Mayfield versus a young up-and-coming rookie quarterback, which gives you all kinds of flexibility to build that team long-term and a stamp your name on a young quarterback. I don't see it. I especially would believe that the Jets would go out and get themselves an offensive head coach if they made a decision to get rid of Glenn at that point. So this isn't really about Baker. I think Baker's a good top 12, top 15 quarterback. So it's not disparaging him. I love him as from a personality perspective, his moxie, the fearlessness. I want my quarterback to have exactly all of those traits. I don't know if I'd necessarily want my quarterback to go to the media and trash the organization like he did the other day about not getting the extension. It comes across a little petty. I think that he could have handled that in a very different way. But it's Baker, and he plays like that with a chip on his shoulder, and he doesn't hold, he makes it very clear when he doesn't like something, right? So, my personality is I like fieriness, taking it against the opponent, finding a way to channel that, having a bit of an FU attitude, awesome. But when it comes to my own employer, or coaching staff, or ownership, or whatever, I would probably keep that internal. I'd be like, look, we didn't get the extension. Like, to me, I would have been okay with this. Look, I made it very clear I wanted an extension. I feel like I've earned an extension. I told these guys by the end of this, by the beginning of training camp, if it didn't get done, I wasn't going to continue negotiating. I can't say I'm not disappointed because I am, but it's behind me. I love my teammates. I feel I am a franchise quarterback. My plan is to go out there, play with a chip on my shoulder, and prove that I am that guy to earn whatever contract I get and whatever the future looks like. We'll see. And that's it. Like, and just leave it, right? Like, I don't like the whole, I felt disrespected and blah, 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 and kind of trash the organization piece. With that said, it wouldn't stop me from getting him if I really believed that Baker's upside was a top 10 quarterback, and that he was maybe Baker, if Baker was 27 and I thought he could become a top 10 QB in the league, and he didn't play in a way that I thought would risk injury into his mid 30s. And again, that's just very rare for those types of guys to become free agents, right? Then I might feel a little differently. Where he is as a player, where he is in his career and a timeline, his size, his style of play, and what it would take to get him, I just don't think it makes sense for the Jets. I'd much rather let them go out and do what they're going to do this year and let the chips fall where they may. I hope to God Glenn can figure it out. The Jets win enough games, he saves his job. The Colts are awful. The Jets get a top 10 draft pick, top 7 draft pick, but also win some games this year. Geno stays as the placeholder for the rookie quarterback that you draft, and you are now set on a trajectory of a young quarterback on a rookie scale contract while you're bringing in more and more talent, which I think will be on the defense next year. And that's how you build a sustainable long-term winner. Most of the time when you give these big, long extensions to guys as they enter their age 31, 32, 33 season at the quarterback position, you commit that kind of money, unless you have a really good built-out roster that's younger around them, you're putting yourself in a position of very challenging flexibility to actually build out what you're trying to do, which is to win a championship. If the Jets' goal is to just be a 9-10 win football team for the next few years, then so be it. You can go get Baker, and that's probably what you'd be. That's what he's proven they are in Tampa. Baker Mayfield's not Jalen Brunson to the Knicks. Jalen Brunson to the Knicks was in his mid-20s at the time. He was still on an upward trajectory as a player. He didn't cost you an exorbitant amount of money to get him here. And oh, by the way, when it came time for his extension, when he could get the money that Baker's trying to get, what did he do? He took less. So these are not comparable when you think about franchises and where they are in their build. Baker's not that guy to me. He's a nice, good football player on a team ready to go win. Baker would be a great fit in Pittsburgh. He would probably be a great fit in Minnesota. Those make sense to me, not necessarily the New York Jets. Anyway, that's my perspective. Go Jets. I hope they have a great, camp. We'll keep going with different videos throughout the week. My third recording in the week, so I've been busy this week, but I thought it was important to chat. I did get rid of my background. I thought it was too distracting. I didn't like the way it looked. I need a new setup to be able to utilize a background that doesn't clip the way it did. So we've got this sterile background as it is. But anyway, please click like and subscribe. I do appreciate the support. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and I will chat with you soon.